Mary started us out talking a little bit about how evaluation or professional appraisal is a journey. And Mary did use 10 years as potentially sort of that target, not as in 1 year. But it is a journey, and one of the nice things is that Mary did ask, hey, do you know of some folks in the spirit of sharing with one another so we can learn from each other? Do you know some teams that might be interested in coming to share their journey? And I think that's the big key here, is that in that process, there's going to be some technical changes and technical work that needs to happen, but there's also adaptive work that needs to happen on all parts and all parties and all stakeholders as you walk down this journey of building, I like to use Joe's terminology, building a profession. And I think that's the important piece. So I asked two groups to come here. So we have Batavia School District 101 on the far end over there. And then we also have Glenview School District 34. What I challenged them to do was to frame their work for you today. We're going to first give each team a chance to give you some context of who they are. And I asked them to frame it around where have you been on your journey, where are you now on your journey, and where are you headed. So each team is going to take just a few minutes at the beginning to explain to you their context, who they are, and answer those questions. And then after that, we're going to go into more of a panel discussion. I have some prepared questions that I'm going to ask the teams to just respond to where they're at.
Good morning. My name is Nanette Ross Meredith. I am the GEA president in Glenview. This is my 4th year in the role. I've been in the district 13 years, been teaching 22, and I was a music teacher for the first 12, and now I'm a full-time release president.
Good morning. My name is Preston Roberts. I am a physical education teacher. I've been teaching PE for 16 years. I've been at this school district for 9, 7 of which have been on this committee.
Good morning. My name is Beth Sumus, and I'm the Executive Director for Curriculum Instruction and Assessment. I've been in Glenview for 25 years, mostly as a classroom teacher, and then I was an instructional coach, and am now at the administrative office.
Good morning. My name is Frank Rotman. I'm a principal at Pleasant Ridge Elementary School in Glenview. I've been in the district for 20 great years. Most of my time is as a teacher, and you're going to hear me refer to myself still as a teacher. I think many administrators, if not all of us, would say the same thing. I was also in the union as a teacher welfare and as an instructional coach.
Hello, excuse me. My name's Tony Malay. I'm president of the Batavia Education Association. Actually, most importantly, I'm a parent of, or father of 3 children, one at high school, middle school, and elementary, so we get the full dose. And I teach middle school industrial technology. I've been president of the Batavia Education Association for 8 years now. And I'm also this year doing the IEA UniServe Director internship. So it has been an extremely busy year that I will be glad when it's over.
Fair enough. Hi, I'm Amy Biancari. I am Vice President of the BEA, and I am an English teacher and journalism teacher at the high school. I'm also a parent of 3 kids. 1 graduated last year, but 1 at high school and 1 in middle school in the district. And I am also an appraisal consultant for the Fine Arts Division and PE at my high school.
Yeah, you'll hear more about that later, right? Absolutely. Hey, my name is Steve Pierce. I'm the Assistant Superintendent of Human Resources in Batavia, and I have been there for about 10 months or so, I'd say. So it's great. So if Tony has an issue, or if Amy has an issue, I can just blame it on the people that were before me. It's awesome. Tony doesn't seem to like that, though. Yes, look at, he's like, yeah, I've heard that a few times. I have 4 children, actually, since we're sharing about our families. 16, 14, 11, and we have a kindergartner at home, which is hilarious in our family. But we're excited about what's happening in Batavia, and we're excited to be here, and we're thankful. So looking forward to hearing from everybody.
So with that, we're going to go ahead and start with Glenview is going to share with us, again, their journey where they've been, where they are, and where they're going. So take it away.
So I'll begin with where we've been, and in order to do that, we thought it'd be helpful to give you a little bit of a context of the decision-making structure that we have within our school district. It supports the development of this plan, and it has continued and will continue to support any changes or refinements or any things that need to happen in the future. We represent all of the different roles that are part of what we call our standing committees in our district. That's what's on the screen. We have 3 standing committees, Education, Personnel, and Compensation Committee. And those are made up of all stakeholders in the district who then make those decisions collaboratively through consensus decision-making primarily. And we do, if we need to use some other way to make a decision, we do talk about that, and then we collaboratively decide what that decision, how that decision will be made. This year we made a change to our structure. In the past, there was 3 teacher representatives on the committee, 1 from each primary, intermediate, and middle school level. And in our last negotiations, we upped that, and we now have 1 teacher representative from every building in our district. So we have 8 teacher representatives. We have 1 principal representative. We have a district administrator, and it is the district administrator who is connected most closely to that committee. So the HR director is connected to personnel, the business manager is connected to compensation, and the director of the CIA is connected to the education committee. We also have on the committee the superintendent and a board representative. All 3 of those are 3 major standing committees, as well as a coordinating council, which I still consider one of our standing committees, but it is made up of representatives of the different standing committees. So each standing committee has 2 co-chairs, and those co-chairs represent on the coordinating council, as well as more principal representation, board representation, and the superintendent and myself, and our Glenview Professional Association, which is our support staff association. They're also represented on the coordinating council because we look at broader issues and we make sure that the contract is implemented and we are trained and we have the knowledge to help support all of our standing committees in their decision making. They meet monthly. As I said, we use consensus decision-making. It's a shared decision-making process that we use throughout our whole district, whether it be building councils, our standing committees, subcommittees. We address anything that comes. Things can come to committees for discussion through anybody. It can come from the board. It can come from the superintendent, teachers, the co-chairs, the union president, and then that's where we have those discussions.
All right, at the teacher level, at the school level rather, we have monthly building council meetings that we meet once a month after school, where teachers and building administrators discuss openly about our school successes, our school concerns, school issues. We plan for the future, and teachers' voices are heard as they are stakeholders in the collaboration process.
Patrick talked about this morning in his keynote, it's the what. We all understand the why, and we hope you're getting a sense of how we do this. Another way we do this is building trust. Now that is, I think Danielson would agree, an overused word. But we have a process in place to continue to build that trust and maintain that trust by working together. And Danielson also says, being on the same side of her term, the problem, we like to say the opportunity to build that trust, to look at solutions together through open dialogue and decision making.
So you heard Nan use the word representatives a lot. So we feel very fortunate that on any of the standing committees, there are representatives from all of our schools, and as she mentioned, building principals, district administrators, and a board member. So one thing I will tell you is that we are continually considering this a process, that we are always looking to learn from the process that we have in place and to refine it as well. So as she mentioned, it's ongoing. It's an evolving process. But due to the fact that you have that much representation, we allow for time for each of those representatives to go back to their buildings or back to their constituents to get their feedback. So pretty much part of our process is a built-in feedback loop So if you are a representative, we're working to be very consistent on what is your role on the committee and what is your role when you leave the committee work and you go back to your building or you go back to your team. So we will say that sometimes the decisions might take a little longer. Nan mentioned that we meet on a monthly basis. So typically if there's a decision that's going to impact everyone, we go back and we seek the feedback from our stakeholders, and then we come back the following month to do the vote. So I will say that the decisions might take longer, but at the end of the day, they're usually much more successful because they're very well-informed decisions.
So our personnel committee is the committee that oversees the work of evaluations in district, and the evaluation subcommittee is a piece of that. They are the group that created this plan, which you'll hear a little bit more about, and then they will continue to monitor that, any revisions, instruments, tools, supports, anything that would need to be added or refined throughout the process. The evaluation subcommittee would be the group that would do that, and then it would be approved by our personnel committee, who are all elected, which I forgot to share that. They're all elected representatives, so those reps from each building were elected by their building to represent them at the table in all of those collaborative discussions. And that's the structure that's going to continue that work for us.
And one thing I forgot to mention on the first go-around, at our monthly building council meetings, just so it's clear that teachers and the building administrators come to consensus about decisions through open dialogue and discussion, okay? And the structure that everyone here is talking about has allowed our evaluation plan to be developed in a collaborative manner, meaning the committee was successful because of the feedback loops Beth mentioned that are always set in place. So the committee will do or create work, create tools, create something to be brought to the building council meetings, presented, the same message is presented at each building. There's a PowerPoint, so each building is getting the same message that the committee, about the work the committee has done. At those building council meetings, the teachers are highly encouraged to give feedback. They're highly encouraged to ask questions, and they give that feedback to the reps who come back to the committee, and then that will form the work for the future. All right, and the evaluation committee also has created a frequently asked questions link on the district website, so teachers are allowed to go on the website, they can ask questions, they can see what questions are being asked, and that just increases the transparency of the structure.
You've heard Preston say transparency, and that is a crucial key aspect that all of us understand in D34s, I'm sure in your districts. When we looked at the evaluation plan, we based it on a philosophy of student growth and professional development, not mutually exclusive of each other, but the power of and, as Dufour would say. And in regards to that professional growth, the plan allows and encourages goal making with the principal, with the evaluator, so that the practice in the plan is reflective and authentic, connected to the nuances of the teacher's work. We also looked at standards, and again, Patrick mentioned Danielson. That is the framework we're using with a great deal of success because, as Patrick stated, it is a common language. One of the things, if you were to sit with a teacher and evaluator, you would hear is, okay, this is what Danielson says in this particular domain or component. What does it look like and sound like in your classroom? So we're gaining another deeper level of common understanding. As well in the plan, the use of Danielson, we differentiated with career stages and roles. You know there's a big difference between a first and second year teacher compared to a tenure teacher. So when we're developing goals or having conversations that are reflective and authentic, we have differentiated some key aspects of the dialogue or key components. In regards to roles, what we found is when we first rolled this out, it was really based on classroom teachers. But as we looked, there are nuances with our social workers and student services and speech and language therapists. We had to go back and look and utilize what Danielson said and pull that framework together in our plan.
Okay, so the implementation of our evaluation system was highly successful due to, and I'm gonna embarrass Jill here, but Jill Engel was our HR director, incredibly organized, and the personnel committee, the members of the committee, because throughout the district, in order for this to work, there did have to be a common language, and as Preston mentioned, there did need to be this consistent flow of information back and forth between the committee and all of our staff members. So it was highly successful due to that, and I will say that we have modeled other opportunities off of that system so that we can kind of emulate the practices that were used by the evaluation committee. One of the other things that helped to make it a success was that we phased it in over time, that everyone was given professional development around the Danielson framework for teachers. So we worked closely with CEC to have consultants come regularly. At that time, we were having our instructional coaches work just with our year 1 and year 2 teachers, so they were really getting entrenched and saturated with Danielson. But what we did was we phased in our evaluation plan and system so that volunteers were the first to be evaluated within the new system. And then after the volunteers came our year 1 and year 2 teachers, because that's all they knew and that's what they came into the system growing and learning about. And then after that came our tenured teachers. But by that point, we had so many teachers who were already being evaluated by the system. There was already dialogue and a comfortable feeling around the use of Danielson. The other thing that made it successful was, again, just like our standing committee structures, there's always two-way communication. So everyone is really encouraged to have their voice at the table, whether they're literally on the committee or whether they're part of that two-way communication back at the building level. That engagement and involvement really helps promote the ownership of the process. I would say that anybody in our district, as Dan mentioned, knows that if they have a concern or an issue, they know who to take it to. So we always have minutes and talking points in all of our up-to-the-minute editions that go out to all of our staff on a bi-weekly basis. So you know that communication plan. You know how to get to those committees and have your voice heard. The other thing that would, I don't know, I guess be an indicator of why it was successful was that we also know the work is never done. Nobody sees this as written in stone, that it's an evolving piece. And Preston can tell you, once you join the committee, you might be a lifer, you might be on for longer than you bargained for, but that's also a testament that he's been on it for years and he's still really a significant part of that role.
So as we move forward, the committee will continue to do its work. We know that we have a lot to look forward to as far as preparing for the para implementation in 2016 in our district. Personnel committee has begun to create plans and timelines and working with the CEC and training in all different areas for that, as well as coordinating with our education committee because the evaluation is so closely linked to what's happening in the classroom with regarding assessments that the two committees will work very closely through this process, but that's really what's at the head now as we prepare going forward.
And our past evaluation work, as we've all mentioned, has created a lot of trust in the process. The shared decision-making structures that our district has in place will help us through the difficult time we have ahead to determine how we include student growth as a part of the evaluation rating. And as Beth mentioned a minute ago, the process that we used for the evaluation committee was so successful, and I'm also on the compensation committee, so there's a topic right now under the compensation committee that we're going to try and follow the same exact steps that we did for the evaluation committee onto the compensation committee because it works so well.
Hopefully at this point you can start to see again how we're doing this and the power behind that ongoing conversation. And that I think a word also is the idea of vulnerability. We don't view this plan, our teachers don't view this plan as got you. It's being vulnerable to say, I need help, I just not understanding. Can you give me some ideas around? And as an evaluator, being available and being ready with those ideas or seeking additional help to support our teachers.
So in closing, I would say that one of the things about our standing committee structure is that it really has helped to foster a continuous improvement mindset in our district. We do have what we call, well, in addition to our strategic plan goals, we also have what we call our big three goals around curriculum assessment and instruction. And so all of our standing committees are always kind of talking the same language. They have some consistent processes within their structure. So that has really allowed for all of our staff to see how this evaluation plan has been a part of our continuous improvement for the district overall. So we appreciate you listening to our comments this morning, and we look forward to some questions.
Thanks. And we're going to go ahead and hear from Batavia now.
Okay. Well, I'll start with our story, I guess. First of all, Batavia is about 15 miles west of here on the Fox River, and it's the home of the 2013 Class 6A state champion, Battling Bulldogs. So I had to make sure I got that in. We're a district, we are a district of about 6,000 students. We're currently 438 teachers, and this is kind of where we've been. In 2001, we had a committee together that started looking at professional appraisal and came up with a plan incorporating Charlotte Danielson. That was back when it was the standards. And we had this plan that did not require any ratings. We thought at the time we were a waiver district. We didn't find out until later that there was no waiver, and then there was a waiver applied for that we did get. But when the new administration came in 2007. So for tenured teachers, there was no ratings given. We had professional growth plans, yet we were still a very high-performing district. So we had some very committed people, and we're doing quite well. Then in the spring of 2009, I was president then, and I got a call from some fourth-year teachers that were in a panic. The school board meeting was going to be coming up where employment decisions would be made, and they said, well, we didn't do a portfolio. And I said, well, that's your responsibility to do it. And he said, but our administrator never talked about that at all. And it was at that point I realized the plan that we had was inconsistent. Some people were using it as a tool for continuous improvement, and others not so much. Some administrators were, others not so much. So I approached the administration and I said, we've got this plan on the shelf that's in some places collecting dust, and we could have a better plan as a tool for continuous improvement. And administration acknowledged, yes, we would agree some of our administrators don't do the best job with this. So what can we do about it? And I said, well, let's look at redoing our whole plan. They agreed 100%. And it was at that time we enlisted the help of the CEC. In fact, our superintendent at the time, Jack Barshinger, was the co-chair of the CEC. So that lended, fit in very well with where we wanted to go. So we put together a committee, a collaborative committee, our joint committee, and started working on this. And as we kicked it off, Audrey Soglin, IEA Executive Director, came and spoke with us and let us know, there's some stuff coming. And yeah. But we had, we were working on shared beliefs and did all the, all the groundwork. Chris, you were there helping us with that. And started developing this plan, and lo and behold, here comes the legislator. I forgot on my desk this morning, I meant to bring it, I have a button, and some of you have probably seen them. It says, those who can teach, those who cannot pass laws about teaching. So every time we would meet, it seems like the legislator would throw something else on us. With the para law that was passed, the Performance Evaluation Reform Act, and then Senate Bill 7, which made everything high stakes. But we kept pushing through and came up with this plan using the Danielson model. And in 11-12, we piloted it with new hires. We had about 40 new hires that year. And then at 12-13, which would have been last year, we went full implementation. Now, the big issue, we had some serious culture shock to go through because tenured teachers were not being given a rating for over 10 years. And, was definitely a big concern for us as we move forward into a system that was now going to put one of 4 ratings on people and potentially be very high stakes. So we were going from 0 to 60, with some serious growing pains we knew were coming. And as a result of that, or because of where we were, we had a very lean administration, meaning that the very few administrators, 6 elementary buildings with only 1 building principal in each. In fact, at one point we were down to 2 administrators for a middle school of 1,500 kids, and 4 administrators at the high school. So we knew we were going to have to build some capacity, so there was positions created to evaluate. Well, these are positions of people that don't have a lot of experience evaluating. So we've been moving ahead with the program, all realizing that we're going to have growing pains. We continue to collaborate. I think that's the only way we're going to get through it. And we've, after last year's rollout, we started identifying some areas where we could really make some improvements. And that's what Amy's going to talk about.
All right. Thank you. So as Tony was saying, yes, we did. Oh, do we need a scooter thing? As Tony was saying, because we had this waiver, we had teachers who were tenured who had literally never had a classroom observation after their initial tenure. So we had our first year of the Danielson model for everybody, and in 2013 in the winter, Tony and I sat down and we tried to develop some system that would help our members be able to work in the system and have some support in this thing that was new for most of them. So we decided to develop something we called appraisal consultants, and in order to do that, we brought it forward to our executive board, our BEA executive board with all our reps, got feedback from them, and then we have monthly meetings with our senior management administrators downtown. So we brought it forward to them for feedback, and then we got a vote from our exec board about whether we should go forward with it. And what we determined was we were going to have 1 appraisal consultant for each elementary school, and then 1 per grade or division for the high school and the middle school, and 1 special ed or related services person for east side of town, west side of town, the middle school, and the high school. So 4 more in those positions, and that Tony and I would also get trained in as appraisal consultants as well. And we thought it was really important to have those be elected positions rather than appointed positions. We wanted our membership behind them, and we wanted our membership to choose the people that they felt would support them best in the classroom and help them out the most when they were doing this consulting. The training that they had was the same qualified evaluator growth through learning modules that all of the regular evaluators have. So that was super helpful. It was actually a very, very helpful process, and I have to thank Shelley especially because she helped all of us get through it in the summertime. And for those of you who've gone through it, it's a very eye-opening experience, and it's very, very rich, and it's very painful in many, many ways. But it's so good in helping the teachers understand what the evaluators are looking at and how they're seeing their practice. So that was a really helpful thing. And once they were in position, they have been utilized, gosh, a whole lot this past year. In fact, we have a Google Doc where people log their time and what they used it for. And this past year, we had 15 appraisal consultants throughout the district. We logged 4,465 minutes of appraisal consulting time, which is about 74 and a half hours. And of those hours, only 25 minutes were used with release time. So, and those were mine too, I have to admit it. But and I was helping a PE teacher prep for something. But those those minutes were used for a huge variety of reasons. And when we envisioned it, we worked with the appraisal consultants to develop, okay, well, what are the needs of our members, and how can we help them? And we felt like it was really important to have a role where there was kind of a firewall, and we were providing a service, but we weren't directly working with the administrators. So most of what they do is they help prep teachers for their observations, their formal and informal observations. They help them understand the framework better and interpret the Danielson model. They prep for the mid-plan meetings and their summative ratings, and after those meetings we help them interpret them, sometimes help them with a lot of the paperwork stuff. That is what I would say is probably the majority of the time. And then also the appraisal consultants would go observe teachers in their practice and give them feedback before they had observations from their evaluators. There were people who did, there were actually some really creative uses with the appraisal consultants. One of the elementary appraisal consultants worked with her building administrator to create these packets with timelines and exemplars and other materials for all the staff, and then she shared them with the rest of the appraisal consultants so we could make ours for the different levels, and that was really helpful for the staff members. We've held Q&A sessions. We have reported feedback from our people to building leadership teams so that they can get a sense of what our concerns are. We've met with each other to problem solve issues and to kind of plan for future things, and really it's been a very rich and helpful thing for our members. One thing though or some things that the appraisal consultants do not do, and specifically do not do on purpose, we don't share information on any specific issues with members to evaluators. There literally is a firewall there. We also, on the flip side of that, the administrators, we need to have a good working relationship with them too, and we want to have trust on both sides of that. So we do not act in an adversarial way. We don't advocate for people, we consult. So we help them in any way that they need, but our role is not to go into a meeting and say, you know, my person is doing this and you're not seeing it, you know. So it is a more neutral position. And because of that, I feel like we've built a really trusting relationship with both sides. So in future.
Well done, Amy. Excellent. Yeah, in the future, where are we headed? And it's been interesting for me jumping in the middle of all this. I don't know if in the interview process they told me that no tenured teacher had been given a rating in over a decade. If I was like, oh, I didn't realize that when that came up. Anyways, but we have our joint committee that's meeting very unofficially. And we're continuing to problem solve at all times, probably like a lot of groups are, through a lot of these growing pains. That can only be done by people being honest, being transparent, building trust, and really processing through any issues there. Another role of that joint committee really has been to problem solve and get clarity on the whole role of the appraisal consultant, because we signed off that we were in support of. Tony, you're distracting me. No, we signed off that we are supportive of the appraisal consultant as administration sometime last spring or over the summer, and this is our year of learning together how that is going to look. So another role of joint committee was to process through that. A big step that our group has taken as a district is we went to CEC training, so I can put in a little plug for the student growth CEC training that Carrie over there ran for us, and we send her questions all the time. But we had a collaborative team go. It's okay, I only have 3 bullet points. It's joint committee, student growth, and shared training. So visualize that as I talk. So in the student growth area, the CEC training was very, very helpful, and believe it or not, we have a pretty solid skeleton process. And I'll be honest, I went to the first 3 full-day trainings, And every time we drove home from NIU Naperville, we were all scratching our heads and saying, oh my goodness, this is huge, this is giant, how are we going to do this? And Carrie did a great job of really bringing it all together for our team at that fourth. Did we get there? I'm right in that middle bullet. All right, there we go. Carrie did a great job of really bringing it together for us after that fourth session, and we came back with a skeleton process, and we've been able to process through that and share that with our joint committee, and we actually have a group for next year, so the 14-15 school year, we're actually going to have a small pilot group that's going to be piloting our student growth process, and we're meeting with all of them on Monday to do some training for them so that they understand exactly what they're getting into. And actually, Amy has somehow convinced a group of high school English teachers to join her. They're going to be a small pilot group. We have a middle school 8th grade science team, and we have 2 different groups from our elementary schools, grade levels, who are going to be piloting this. So we're going to get it at all of our different levels. And you know what? We don't really know how it's going to go, but we're not going to know how it's going to go until we learn by doing. So that's what we're going to engage in starting this coming fall, and we're pretty excited about that. Our vision then is 14-15 next year. We're going to have this small pilot. Our vision then for 15-16 is to have a full pilot with our entire staff, and then go to full implementation the following year in 16-17. And again, during all this time, we're going to check in, we're going to communicate, we're going to collaborate, and see how things are going. With this, the appraisal consultants, which I think is a pretty exciting program, and I have to give credit to our association for coming up with something as innovative as this. I would say that we've worked pretty independently. Administrators, we went through our training a couple years ago. The appraisal consultants, they went through their training last year. What's exciting to me is instead of working kind of in isolation this coming year, we're going to start doing some joint training so that we can learn together. And I think I think it's a good way of us modeling our collaborative belief system to our school community. And we're going to be really focusing on shared learning in different targeted domains together. And I think what we should see is just us being on the same page more, and really giving great feedback to our professional staff as we should. So we're excited about where this is going. Being honest, there's lots of growing pains along the way, though. And the only way it works, and you all know this, is that we continue to communicate, collaborate, have real talk with each other, and work through those growing pains. So we're excited about where this is going in Batavia.
So since we've heard from both of the different districts, one of the things I was back here writing notes down, because if you guys can imagine, you know those Wordles where if you could put everything in a paragraph and then up pop some things. I was kind of doing my own little personal Wordle back here. And a couple of the things that I heard both teams talk about, and some high things: trust, collaboration. I heard a lot around communication and a consistent message. I heard continuous improvement. The word shared came up a lot. And also feedback. So I just wanted to share those things. And to start off with, we have just a few questions, and then I'm also going to open up if the audience has specific questions they want to have. We'll have just a short period of time for that. But there were some prepared questions that I did want to give all of the folks a chance to just sort of respond to. And the one that kind of came up is, we did hear a lot about some different pieces, different pilots or ways that the groups were trying to kind of put all of those things in that Wordle together. What were some of the strategies that you all found helpful when you got stuck, or things were a little challenging, or there was maybe some pushback? What were some of the strategies maybe that you guys were able to do? And anyone can feel free to jump in.
All right, I'll give it a shot. A lot of it, I think, was if the committee was stuck on something, we would go and ask our membership what they thought, and we would get that feedback loop going again. I think a lot of times we had to kind of step back from our work, take a breath, take 5 minutes, regroup, and kind of really focus on what it is that we're trying to do. But a lot of it is going to the membership and asking that shared responsibility, asking our members what do they think of the process, are there any ideas, any feedback that we can take back to the committee to move forward with. We also had a subgroup from the sub-evaluation committee take a look at certain things. We kind of broke up into teams, mini teams, to look at certain aspects of the plan to see if we can move it forward.
I would say our committee has been together for a long time now. You know, it was 2009, so we're coming up on 5 years. Next year will be 6. Where we've been working on this. You know, of course, Steve's new to the team, and we've welcomed him. He's been a great addition to the team. But it's those relationships that we've had, and you know, going back to the beliefs that we have that we started with in this. You know, that's been a big part of it. Also, I would like to add a bit to what Amy said, that the appraisal consultants don't advocate. Originally, we were going to be appraisal advocates, and administration said, I don't know if that's something we'd be interested in. And so we understood what they said. We decided, yes, appraisal consultants are more appropriate. But that's not to say that, you know, the association president and vice president don't advocate. You know, we have growing pains that we have acknowledged, and when issues come up, you know, we have the conversations about them and try to resolve them and bring them to the committee, and the committee looks back, well, what did we intend to do with this? Because there's a lot of things that we're seeing that came up that, you know, we didn't quite answer going through this, and quite frankly, the goalpost was moved a bit by the legislator as we went through this, and so continuing to have those conversations. The other one other thing I would add is the appraisal consultants are 100% funded by the association. It is the association that puts that our executive board decided that this was important enough to fund our members, or to support our members in this, that we would fund it. And so all the appraisal consultants are stipended positions paid for by the association.
I'm sure many of you can stop Tony or Amy before they walk out, so you can find out how that happens. So also, we talked about creating a profession. And all of the work, I think, that both of your teams are working towards are creating that profession. So my question is really, what do you think is some of the key pieces that you might even advise or suggest that were so critical in order to continue down your journey on that profession?
So professional development and communication are always key. I know you know that. But one thing I want to share is that our professional development sometimes is external. It is largely internal. Frank and I are sitting here bumping because I think your appraisal consultant is what we call an instructional coach. And we have instructional coaches that are in our buildings, as well as district coaches who are really helping us implement the Common Core that focus really specifically on ELA and math. And those district coaches are side by side with people, and that is a huge part of the job-embedded professional development. So one thing I would say, as I mentioned earlier, those coaches initially focused on our year 1 and year 2 teachers, and that self-reflection is huge. So sitting and talking confidentially with a coach and being able to reflect on your practice and to reflect on the components of Danielson and what that's looking like in your work was really starting to build a culture in our district where it was okay to talk to other members about how you're doing in terms of your evaluation overall. Also, with the teachers who had segment meetings, as you mentioned with your appraisal consultants, your instructional coach was really integral in helping you to get ready for those segment meetings, but even having that meeting with your principal, your building's main instructional leader, is huge in terms of that professional development and helping you target who can I connect you with to help you with the things that you're identifying as a need. And if there's a strength, how can I help you to grow the capacity of others with that strength, whether you're a year 1 or a year 5 or a year 10? Some of our best teachers who deliver a lot of our instruction in terms of professional development are year 3 and 4 teachers, just like you saw yesterday with Kelsey, who was up here from Schaumburg. So we really like to honor that and recognize that. The other thing is for our tenured teachers and teachers who have the professional goal setting, to really include the coaches as part of that, but to consider if we see trends over a lot of the professional goals, to have those be things that help us with our building professional development or district level professional development. So we try to be strategic with that so that we're honoring what people's goals are and how we can address it at a district level. We also have in our district what we call a learning process support system, and we gather feedback from all of our staff on that. We have a collaboration rubric that all certified staff respond to twice a year. And again, we look for patterns and trends over the course of the year as to how can we help you? What kind of professional development are you seeking? And that PD might be embedded on an individual basis with your coach. It might be for your team. It might be for your building. Or again, it might be a really big red flag and it's something that we want to offer at the district level. I would also just share that we always bring people back to why. So we heard earlier there's the what, the how, and the why, but we always start professional development with either verbally expressing or a slide that shows why are we doing this? Is this part of our strat plan? Is this one of our big 3 goals? Is this an indicator? But we remind people why we're offering what we're offering related to the professional development, and we try very strategically to tie it to Danielson, so when they see what it is, the content of the PD, how does that align with what you're doing in Danielson? Because we want you to be able to speak to that and to reflect upon that in your practice.
All right. I guess I should probably clarify. We do have instructional coaches in our district as well, and standards coaches. And it's nice because we do have supports in lots of areas for our teachers. The instructional coaches in our district really work with professional practice, just in improving professional practice. The difference mainly is that the appraisal consultants are truly focused on the Danielson framework and the evaluation system. So we focus more on, okay, well, how is that reflected in your domain 2 or your domain 3, and what you're doing, and what's your current rating, or what are your current informals looking like, and then how do you interpret that and kind of move forward from there. So we do kind of have a difference there. And I know our instructional coaches, when we first proposed having appraisal consultants, some of them were worried that we would be kind of stepping on their toes or taking their job or stealing their thunder in some way. And so we really did have to differentiate those 2 roles. Like, okay, you're helping with the day-to-day classroom, like here's some ways you can improve your reading instruction or your math instruction, as opposed to here are ways to improve the professional practice via the Danielson framework, kind of. But it does, because especially since we were the waiver district for so long, to answer the initial question, I feel like it forces us, the Danielson framework forces us to look professionally and critically at our practice and really kind of break it down that way.
Thank you. In the interest of time, what I would like to have your teams, or I'm inviting your teams to consider, is that both of our sort of case studies here have offered up probably some ideas or things that maybe make you wonder wherever you are in your journey. So I'm inviting your teams to just sort of think and talk at your table for a minute or so before we go on to break about the things that maybe you heard that make you wonder or want to consider in wherever you are in your journey. So that's what I'm going to ask for you all to do prior to going on to break, is just to kind of think about that. But before we do that, I did want to just thank all of our panelists up here for sharing their story with us.